Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Issues at Hand, WBS TV. Peter Kibazo, your host, and hoping you had a nice day today, whichever way. If you had any challenges, we commiserate with you. But yes, it is Issues at Hand, and like I said, and my team, like I said, I think last Friday on the face-off, that today would have General David Ssejjusa. He's here in the studio with us. I know that several of you have posted several questions on our Facebook page, and along the way. General, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good evening, viewers.
Good evening, General, and straight to those questions. I have several questions. I must acknowledge Rogers Muhumuza, George Murungama, Ziwa, Robert Chigula, Muolendo, Dennis, Isaac Ainebiona, Mudebo, Onen, Nambako, Bosco, Mulongo, and very many of you that even now are still posting. I need to put one question out of the way straight away as we start this show so that we can deal with more substantive issues. General, what is the deal between you and Yoweri Museveni, President of Uganda? What is your deal? What deal did you strike with President Museveni?
Thank you, Peter. That's a question I have had to contend with. Not actually since I returned, even before I went into exile. Yeah, because if you remember, even before I went into exile, I had been at the forefront over things which had started going wrong, and I was pointing them out. You remember when I wrote about things like, I think they appeared in the dailies here, the creeping coup and the beating of people in Kampala, and I remember I wrote something about the gridlock, generational gridlock. I had been at this thing since 2012, actually, or 2011. But the reception was always the same. This man, Rio.
True.
This man, he's working for someone, to the extent that one of the leaders at that time, I remember her, when I wrote about these things, then she told some people, said, no, that is not Ssejjusa's handwriting. At that time I was called Tinyefuza. That's not Tinyefuza's handwriting. Those words are Museveni's words. That's what she said. And I was really intrigued about how people's minds have been captured to the extent that they see everything else through the Museveni lenses. It's as if we actors do not have our own interests. It's as if when I went to Luwero to face bullets, which took many of my friends and left me lame and so on. I'm 1.5 inches short, one leg. When you hear me telling people that it broke off, it's 1.5 inches short because it was fixed, just put on. That I was doing something for Museveni. No one offers his life for. I was offering something for Uganda and for me and for Africa. Therefore, that question starts from a wrong premise. The premise of assuming that we are all, and that is really the slave mentality of the African peoples, because the African peoples have been subjected to a lot of abuse, so much so that they have since ceased to identify themselves with their own interests other than in the service of others. And it's a very sad story, because this is the whole mindset. So that a man can go and fight, come back and offer his services, go to exile, you lose your father, you don't bury him. They killed my brother, by the way, strangled him and put him in that pond of theirs, whoever they were. Those post-mortem report is very, very clear. And I raised it with President Museveni, and I gave it one of these dailies. They feared to print it. My sister, another one, died in funny circumstances. I lost 2 sisters. I lost my mother-in-law. I didn't borrow this. I found half of my property gone. But still I'm in the service of Museveni. The Baganda would say, what sense does it make? Does it make sense? So people tend not to see these sacrifices. Why? Because one is the mindset over a long time of abuse and oppression. But another one is because the oppressor has built a systematic way of it's propaganda. Our people are subjected to that because he has captured the space, not only the political space, but even the social relationship space. He has captured the media. He has captured the organizational space, so it is what he puts out that is consumed. And you find that the opposition people and so on, and people who want freedom, have done nothing to struggle for this space. And this is a very big problem, that it's the narrative which goes around and round.
Are you being really charitable to say that the opposition and the others have done nothing?
No. I'm sorry. No. Not in that sense. Not in the sense of the struggle, struggling for democracy and so on. No. I'm talking about trying to capture the space from the oppressor. This is a mind game. This is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about organization ability and projection of rights of citizens and political struggles. No, I'm talking about, first and foremost, the freeing of the mind of the people. This is what we have to deal with first, to contend with. So, but anyway, to finish that thing is that I'm my own man. I have my own interests to make sure that at the end of the day, my children stay in Uganda and they do not die in exile. I have my own rights. I have my own interests to know that even the little I have accumulated, like I was in exile for 2 years in UK, it's as if I had anything would have happened. I stayed for 2 years with. When I left, I didn't have my wife. I didn't have my children. This is personal. I have interest. I'm not working for Mr. Museveni. I'm working for me. This is it. This is what people must know. That at the end of the day, when things change, I can stay in Uganda, because we have seen all this before. Many people have come in this country, taken over power. It's not new. I was telling some of our people here that when you want to see how things have been changing, you start seeing on how we have occupied these so-called 7 hills of Kampala. Naguru is a new one.
Naguru is a
yes. Kololo, Nakasero. No, even Miyengi is new. Bugolobi, Nakasero, Kololo, Mbuya, those.
The original.
After every struggle, new inhabitants from a different region come.
Yes, you remind me.
It's a very
used to be
scenario.
occupied by a specific ethnic group.
Absolutely. We can be very specific, because you see, before the attack of on the Sekabaka Mutesa's palace, it were the British, the Indians, and the affluent Baganda who were in. Then when Obote attacked Mutesa's palace, then things changed now. Now the people of the north now occupied Kololo and those other hills. And when Idi Amin and Bugolobi, by the way, and so on, and Mbuya and so on, when Idi Amin overthrew Obote, then people from West Nile now, they came and occupied that. And 1979, when the people when Tanzania removed Idi Amin, ultimately the people who came with the Tanzanians, the liberators, they took over the hills now. And when we came after Wero, then we occupied. I remember I had a house at Elizabeth Avenue, which Museveni later on chased me from, and so on. But one person one time asked, he said, "Did you have to chase out the people who were there?" I said, "No, we never found them there." Because they had run away, because they belonged to the regime we were fighting.
Actually, it didn't happen only here. I was in Kigali in, I think, 1996. And there was this word, ndafashe or ndaifashe, which means I've captured.
Yes.
And people had taken over the most rosy hills around Kigali, and they are occupied by your former colleagues from Uganda.
From here.
Yes. But away from that, Geno, as you plunge into these waters of possibly a third, a fourth liberation that we're going into, that you're talking about, the next is you're an encumbered man. you're an officer of the UPDF, from which you haven't received the release. The last time you attempted, and that is part of what causes the earlier question, usually. The last time you attempted, you went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was rested there. In the Court of Appeal, they said you were a free man to go. In the Supreme Court, finally, it was rested that, wait a minute, if you're in the service of this force until you hit a certain age, until the following and the following happens, you're not free to fly. That hasn't changed. When you returned, in the meeting that you were taken to meet the president, when you walked out, you said the instructions were that you would receive your release. General Katumba Wamala says afterwards that he hasn't had those instructions. He hasn't received the instructions to the effect. Until now, they haven't come to pass.
Okay. You see, first of all, I will state the obvious, and then I will tell you what my take on this one is. First of all, is that it is true, actually, I passed through. First of all, it's true that I applied to leave the military. I never applied. I at that time, I resigned, actually. At that time, I resigned, and I sent my letter of resignation in '96 to the president then. And as you rightly say, I went up to the Supreme Court, we reversed the verdict and so on. That is known. And there were options. It's not that there were no options even then. Yeah, there were options. Because you see, we freedom fighters, you see, when I went to the bush, I was a lawyer. Yes, I had even, you know, I left, when I left, you know, when after Makerere, DC, I went to Tanzania, trained. I was a police officer.
A police officer, yes.
I was from Ginger Road here, where Mr. Museveni detained me in the same cell that Obote detained me. The same cell where I escaped and shot out and my colleagues died and so on. Mr. Museveni recently put me in. So it's a full circle, really, that we should go in the same prisons where the people we set out to remove, we should be detained in those cells. It shows you how far we have degenerated really as a country. But even as leaders, morally, as leaders. But going back to that, even then I had choices, because I could have said no. Because you see, like they say, you can take a cow to the well, but you cannot force it to drink. You can say I'm a serving officer, and I say no, because I'm a freedom fighter, because I stand for the right. For the things I believe in. Because when you offer to die in the service of your country, there is only one option, and one option is freedom and what is right. So really, Mr. Museveni didn't, it's not that he forced me to belong to the army. It's a choice I made after he subverted my exit, because he used power, misused power, actually. He misused power. And this is the biggest corruption. Misuse of power. You see, people are talking about corruption in monetary terms, but abuse of power. A president who has been entrusted by the people of Uganda to rule over the people of Uganda, and you subvert the process, the due process. You subvert constitutional rule. You subvert, and you abuse the same people you are supposed to defend and protect. This is the biggest corruption. The corruption. You see, so Mr. Museveni is supposed to protect the generals. He's supposed to be the chief general, the commander-in-chief, the man we went with in the bush, fought with him, brought him and gave him power through our blood. Because he didn't go alone, he didn't fight alone, we fought and brought him. He should have that courtesy, he should have that decency to say, let's listen to this man. I'm not... so, but the fact that he could even subvert the whole process of the law and tell those judges I couldn't, because he threatened them. He said, you want to destroy my army. You ask Justice Kanyihamba, you want to destroy my army? You remove him and you'll see. This is a president who commands an army, who presides over, you know, what did you expect? So they chicken, you know, they fear, and so I'm still, you know, they say you must keep in the army. I had two choices. The one choice was to say no, I won't, like I told Obote. Well, yes, because in 1980-81, I was a serving officer in the police force. I was actually an operational commander. I even had under my command a Tanzanian company. We were fighting in Bufumbo, in the hills of Mount Elgon. Yes, because already they were rebels. Contrary to what people think that NRA were the first start. No. The Nabudere group and Chef Ali and so on, the late Muin and so on, they were already in Rwenzori. And Kair actually attacked Ruzira on 27th December. Much earlier before us. So I had even troops with whom I was fighting. I wasn't looking for you know, for employment. Anyway, I had finished that one. So when at that time Museveni said you cannot leave the army, I could have done like I did with Obote and say I will rebel.
And become a renegade.
Absolutely, become a renegade and become an outlaw and then fight him. But I looked, because you see, fighting, first of all, many people at that time, I was talking with some of my colleagues who were thinking that one of them, very senior people, I was telling the other colleagues the other time, they were saying, we thought you were a spoiler. That's what they thought. Museveni is always right, whether he breaks the law, whether he imprisons people. No one asks him. He says, but what? Because when I set out to fight, I was a freedom fighter. I wasn't looking for a job, as I told you. I was an accomplished person. I had command. I was there. The sky was the limit, with or without Luwero. But it's because of what was happening in the country. And I had been involved in that thing even much earlier, because that's how Amin detained me 3 times with these knives in my head as a young man. So I could have said no. But you see, at that time, people didn't understand what I was talking about, because I went to a parliamentary committee, talked about corruption, prolonging over the Konye One, many of these abuses. And then Museveni wasn't happy with it. So when Mr. Museveni said, you must not leave the army, I could have said, enough is enough, I'll go. But that would have been a personal struggle.
Not the people's.
Not a people's struggle. They did not see the injustice implicit in all this, because it's not about the Ssejjusa alone. No. It's, you see, Mr. Museveni has long been using the army as a political management tool to manage his politics, other than employ it in these extensive megalomania, enterprises in the region and so on. He uses it to make sure that he keeps those who are would-be competitors. It's not me alone. For instance, let me give you many of these commanders. Look at Tumukunde. Let me give you an example. Tumukunde is put in jail for 2 years. He comes out. He says you cannot leave the army. He applies to leave the army. They say you can't go, but he's not deployed. He's in the village loitering and in town. I have a 4-star general. His job for the last 15 years, he doesn't do anything other than going to put on people medals.
Is that
a 4-star general to read? So and so has grown more potatoes. We are giving you a medal. 4-star general. That is a work of a lieutenant colonel.
That's Tumuine?
I don't know his name. Today, you run first, a medal. That is all he does for the last 20 years or so. And when he goes to parliament, they say you are no P. You are not supposed to speak. You should be an observation post and a listening post, an LP. This is a man who is a graduate. He has served.
I need to take a break.
And others. I will talk about it later.
Yes, but before I get into that break, and my producer wants this break, I need to know, how do you unwind yourself out of this conundrum?
No.
Because the web is
let me finish
around
it. Let me tell you,
David Ssejjusa.
Yes.
It is around possibly Tumukunde. It was around Dr. Besigye. It's been around.
Absolutely.
So what do you do to break the web without becoming
I have broken it. This is the importance of Ssejjusa. I have broken it.
How?
Absolutely. That's why I'm here. I'm speaking. What has it done to me? Nothing. You see, this is it. How do the dictators control people? Because they intimidate them with jail or death. I fear neither. So what will you do with me? So it's redundant.
It's when we take the break.
It's
And
redundant.
when we return from the break, the other more substantive things is how does this country move from the stage at which we are at? You have an election coming early next year. You have General David Ssejjusa here saying it is worthless, it is pointless, unless you make certain changes. I've listened to Dr. Kibazo Besigye today when he was launching himself into asking for the flag for the FDC. He wasn't actually saying, give me the flag. He is saying, we can't go into this election. Give me the flag, but we can't go into this election until it is worthwhile going into. And I'm saying, what is doctor saying? That give me the flag so I keep it in Kasangati? So how do we get away from where we are at without Uganda becoming a Somalia, without Uganda becoming a Libya? Don't go away.
Thank you.